Yay! Hi, everyone. Welcome to Megabyte Monday. Today is super exciting because I am talking with the amazing Sarah Plumitallo. I hope I said your name right because I mess it up all the time.
You did it right half the time. My maiden name was so much easier.
I know the feeling. However, we're going to be talking about unpacking our whiteness and racism and all of these wonderful questions that you might have. People are blowing up the comments already. Have you seen those?
No, I need to go look.
Um, yes, we're going to take a moment to go look at the comments because we have so many amazing people here. We have, comments. Lindsay, we have Sarah, we have Monique, we have Maggie, we have Jada, we have Marissa and Kim and Ms. Mac and Claudia. Who else is here? Let's see who's here. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm sorry. Marilee, did I say that right? I hope I said that right.
Oh, Mr. Gammon from Virginia. Hey.
Hi, Ryan. How are you? So we are going to get started. Hi, Melissa. Hi, Melissa. And as we go, like, I'm going to be worried more about the comments. So if you see me looking down, that's probably what I'm doing. Ashley is here. Kathy Joe is here. It's just super exciting. And remember that this is a place of, oh, Christina just texted me and she said she's here, but she's watching from her iPad and she can't comment. Hi, Christina. But this is a place of learning and this is a place of collaboration and things like that. And yes, I have one headphone in because it's hooked up to my microphone so I can hear you all. So we're going to go ahead and get started and meet our lovely guest tonight, Sarah. I'm going to stop talking. How about you introduce yourself? Tell us what you teach, how long you've been teaching, why this is a passion of yours. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, my name is Sarah Plumitallo. I have been teaching this is my 6th year. It has flown by. I teach in Virginia. I was a classroom teacher for the first 5 years, and this is my first year as an ESOL teacher, which means I teach students that either already bilingual or are bilinguals, and their first language is not English. So I've always been passionate about social justice, probably since I can remember. However, I didn't start like unpacking my own white privilege until I was probably until I was in middle school, early high school. So it's just been a really big interest of mine and something that I feel like it's my moral responsibility and my moral obligation to think about. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yay! And I muted my mic, which is why it was like popping back and forth. But like I was typing and answering things. So let's let the pop back with 4. So let's go ahead. Why waste time? Let's just jump into it, shall we? I mean, like, why not? So what do you want to start with first?
I think if we talk just generally about what white privilege is, and that's probably the most uncomfortable part of this conversation. So like a Band-Aid, we can just rip it on right on off, right?
Exactly. Just rip it off. There's no point in like sweet talking it. Like, just, it is what it is. Let's go.
So white privilege, in a nutshell, is the idea that inherent in our whiteness or perceived whiteness, because some people can appear to be white and not be. In white privilege, we receive unearned benefits of passing or being white. For example, one that I've encountered is that I am like not likely to be pulled over as much. I am not likely to have a negative encounter with police when I am pulled over, which I've personally encountered. I am not likely to be followed around a store if I'm shopping because no one's going to assume that I'm stealing. I can go and buy a Band-Aid that matches my skin tone. And I know that sounds really simplistic, but there's something, if you look in the comments, there's a link called Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, and it's by Peggy McIntosh. And she's done a lot of work over the years on white privilege. And I read that when I was in high school, and I know it seems minor, but when I got to that line that talked about flesh colored Band-Aids, well, what color are they? I reread that line a good 20 times. And that was the moment when I just really internalized, oh my God, the entire world is set up for my benefit. And I know it sounds trite, but it is, because if you think about it, I can walk into any store, I can find a doll that looks like me, I can turn on the TV, any channel, find somebody that looks like me. And there's a lot of privilege inherent in that. And it goes beyond that too. It's privilege in hiring practices and in firing practices too, how people are dealt with in HR, loans, housing, medical care. The medical care I received when I gave birth to my 2 sons, if I had been a woman of color, my mortality rate would have been much higher. And that is the facts and the reality and the truth of it. So white privilege, in the smallest possible succinct nutshell, even though I blather on for like 3 minutes now, is that it's unearned privilege on the basis of your skin color, or the perceived basis of your skin color. Because we know that there are a lot of people that appear to be white, but may be maybe Latina or Latino, but that is what white privilege is.
No, that's good. No, you're good. Don't make that face. You did great. And I dropped the link as you were talking. Like, this is my role. So I'm going to ask the questions. I'm going to drop the links of everything that you're talking about so people have resources. And then also underneath this video, I have gone and put those links as well. So if you're watching the replay, that's there too. And I don't think I could have done that justice. So I think that's a really good way to put it. And it's things that we don't even think about, like the Band-Aid thing.
And honestly, it's the buildup of all those things, because in isolation, Band-Aids seem ridiculous. But then you talk about finding a crayon that matches your skin tone, and finding a doll that looks like you, and having characters in books represented like you. And if it's over and over not the norm, that has a multiplier effect. And there's lots of studies that we know now about the importance of representation. But part of the issue is the absence of that in classrooms and spaces. And that's why it's important that we as educators are aware of our own privilege, not only in our classroom, but in our daily life, so that we can advocate for dismantling it.
Yes. All of that. Yes. Whew. I think we're off to a solid start.
I think so too.
I really think so. So let's jump into, we've touched on white privilege and that kind of stuff. And are there any other resources, or like when you go and talk about like your own white privilege, what are some different resources, or what do you look for? Like, how do you educate yourself effectively and efficiently about these different kinds of things?
I really have relied a lot on reading scholarly things. And I know that's not always the most fun thing to do, but reading scholarly works, reading books, reading articles written by people that have studied the effects of white privilege. Those are the ways that I've personally really internalized what it means to be white, and my role as a white person to dismantle white supremacy and to advocate and be an ally. And we can talk more about what being an ally really means later, because I think that word's really misunderstood. But I think starting small, read knapsack first, and then finding there's a lot of really good hashtags on Twitter that you can follow and get some really good PD from, because Twitter is a really, really good place to succinctly get a good message, and you can read the Twitter threads. I do that a lot now, but I think if you're just starting out, reading Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, finding a couple of really good educators on social media that are white and that are talking about social justice, that can be that kind of bridge for you then to fully immerse yourself in the work. I think you really got to take a diverse approach with that, where you're reading about it, you're immersing yourself in it on social media, because if you just kind of sequester it away as one part of your life, you're not really going to get anywhere. It kind of has to be something you think about all the time.
Right.
No, as much as possible.
All of the time.
I mean, that's me very rare. I can turn, ask Tamara Russell, I can turn just about anything into a conversation about it.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a bad thing, though. I think that that's a solid awareness of what's going on.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get into our list of questions, and then I will also be monitoring the other questions that are taking place. Right now, you have a lot of positive feedback happening in the comments, which is super exciting to see.
I am nervous. I'll be all right in a half an hour, but I am so used to doing those like 1 minute long Insta stories and just ranting my little heart out where I can do it over and over again. So this is like, I didn't even wear the petty bun. I had to come correct.
I had to go correct. If you feel like you need to put the petty button in,
no, I thought you needed to lighten it up a little bit. I would teach everybody how to do a petty bun, but we'll save that till later.
How many people want to learn how to do the petty bun? I mean, I tried. I don't think I captured it well. I think that might be something we need to do. But in in the comments we have Corey, Soundless Cries Don't Lead to Healing, A Critical Thinking Guide to Cultural Consciousness by Valencia Clay is her favorite, their favorite.
Okay, can we talk? Let me pause for a minute. I'm going to start a like a Google Doc kind of educators to follow on Instagram and Twitter, because I thought about doing it on a post or in an Insta story, but it disappears. And I want people to be able to not only look for it, but then direct others there. Valencia Clay is the person that I look forward to seeing things from the most, because her passion is just, it's second to none. And she also teaches me something new every single day. And she is someone that I would definitely encourage you to follow starting now. It may be a while before, if this is just your first foray into understanding white privilege and kind of thinking about your whiteness and wanting to be involved in social justice, it might be a while before some of it makes sense to you, but it is worth following now. You don't want to miss a second of what she has to say. She's an amazing educator.
That's good to know, because I have not gotten there, but yes. And then somebody said read White Awake.
Yeah, there's several books. That's one of them that I haven't personally read that one. In my little Amazon thing, and by the way, like, I would advocate buying from small bookstores, but I made the Amazon list so it was easier for people to find the titles. So definitely, like, you can see all the titles on there that I personally have either read or read part of, and would recommend. But buy the titles if you can at a small bookstore, especially if it's a Black-owned bookstore, please. Sorry, just a little plug.
No, shameless plug. I think that's a good point.
There are a lot of titles on there that I would recommend, and we can, if people want to recommend some more, I can go in and add them so that it's just an ongoing list.
Oh, that's good to know. So there you go. If you have book recommendations for Sarah, you need to go, like, do you want them to email you or DM you?
They can DM me on Instagram. It's fine.
Perfect. DM her on Instagram with all of your book suggestions, and she'll start curating a list for all of us to look at. That's super exciting. As well as people to follow on Instagram. Yes. That's super exciting. So if you've got people that you want to shout out, or you yourself are a person of color,
put your own name in the ring. If I don't follow you yet, let me know.
Right. Like, it is not selfish in any way, shape, or form. So let's see. All right. Someone asked, why is it called the petty bun?
Trademark. Okay. We trademark it. I'm thinking of trademarking just because it makes me laugh. It's called the petty bun because when I was visiting Tamara Russell it might have been like 2 years ago, her mom and I always like talk on the phone, and she'll send her pictures of me. And Tamara was wearing a bun, and her mom was like, Tamara, you got to put that higher up on your head. It'll be cuter. And I was like, oh, mom, go ahead and do that. And I copied it with my own bun, and she sent her mom a picture, and her mom was like, well, I like Sarah's. And so it just became a thing, but I would wear the bun all the time. And people started messaging me, and they'd be like, do you know that when you're like really, really into it and passionate, the bun gets higher and tighter like a samurai? And I was like, and I would go back and look, and sure enough, the pettier I felt, the higher and tighter that bun was. literally became like a petty alert system. Like people would know how I was feeling by the bun.
I love it.
Right. The floppiness meant I was about to be a mess. The high and tight bun meant I was about to deliver a dissertation on something. So that's where the petty bun comes from.
I love it. I didn't even know this story, and I think it's like I love that. And I love that her mom likes your bun better.
Yeah. Tamara will tell you that she will tell you that her mom always has grace for me, but not for her. I love her in person, but I talked to her on the phone when I met Tamara. So
that's awesome. Okay, let's jump into questions that we have. So the first question that we got often was, how do you handle racist family members, coworkers, teachers, etc.? Like, how do you approach this? What's the best way to handle this? Because that's hard.
It is hard, but it can be done. And I think the really important thing to remember is that we have the privilege to walk away and have it not affect us. And so, and what I mean by that is, if a person of color is confronted with racism, that's about them. But when we hear about it as white folks, we're hearing about it as bystanders. And we have the privilege to just walk away and wash our hands of it. But we have a moral obligation not to do that because we're not the subject of it. So I would really urge people not to just say nothing, because this being silent is being complicit. And I know it's hard to have those tough conversations, but if you can say nothing else, you can say, this doesn't feel right to me. Because then you're talking about it being on you and your reaction to it and not them. You don't have to call them a racist. You don't have to call them a bigot. I would, but I'm in that place. If you can say nothing else, you can tell them, this doesn't feel right to me. And more often than not, saying that simple statement will cause them to either, one, ask you why, and that can open up a dialogue, or two, they'll just stop talking about it. And we don't want them to stop talking about it because we want all of our racists to be out in the light so that we can either change their mind or make sure everyone knows to avoid them. But there are some really, really good articles that we linked down in the comments. And there was one in particular, and I'm going to read it because I have it on my TV. There was 5 steps to talking with a racist family member, but I think this also extends to friends. And I do also think this extends to workplace, depending on the school culture you've got. And so the first thing that they recommended was to be direct. Don't beat around the bush. This doesn't feel right to me. The second thing was enlist allies in the conversation. So if you know you have other family members or friends or coworkers that can step in and affirm you, involve them. Please don't let that be people of color having to do that heavy lifting. Please look for white allies first.
Yes.
We need to be doing the heavy lifting when we are dealing with other white people saying racist things. Number 3, don't argue. It's a losing battle. You waste all of your energy. I no longer engage in an argument with people on any of my social media platforms. I have a canned statement for each type of thing, and I put it up. I don't argue if they're here to argue. The 4th is to set consequences. If it continues and they continue to disrespect, to be racist, to be bigoted, you set a consequence. If you continue this, I cannot align myself with you, and then follow through. And that's the hardest thing to do. And I hope it doesn't become necessary for anyone, but sometimes we have to do that. And then the 5th is to try and open their eyes. Try and share things with them that you feel will turn the tide on their opinion. I always say stick with the facts, because the facts get you places that anecdotal stories don't. That doesn't mean anecdotal stories aren't important. They are, and we need to validate the experiences of people of color. However, if someone is saying something racist and you can disprove it with a fact, it is a lot easier to do so. So those are the 5 tips from this article. I didn't come up with that, but I thought it was a really, really great piece of advice. And then there was another article about don't unfriend your racist family members yet. So if you're like really struggling with this, please read that article, because it gives you some really great reasons why you shouldn't just unfriend them.
Yeah, I haven't read that article yet, but like, because I mean, your first reaction is to just get these people away from you, right? Like you just want to clear it out.
Page, I don't want anyone mistaking me for being aligned with them. I get it. However, if we just keep pushing them to the margins of society, they're just going to flourish there together. And we've tried that, right? We've tried to isolate people like the KKK. And so now they just live in little enclaves and then all band together and erupt into a mess of Charlottesville. And that Charlottesville's 45 minutes for me. That what happened there was extremely personal to me. But those are somebody's brother, somebody's cousin, somebody's coworker. And odds are no one's stopped them or said anything to them and just said, I can wash my hands of this. I don't want to be aligned with these people. We cannot afford to continue ignoring white supremacy wherever it is. We just can't. We have the luxury to ignore it if we want to. We shouldn't, because we have an obligation to look it dead in the face and say no.
Okay, so here's a question. Marissa wants to know, what if they don't know that they're being racist when they're being racist?
Tell them.
You just flat out tell them you're being racist.
It depends. It depends. Just you feel comfortable giving me an example, you think? I think of scenarios in which flat out saying this is racist is really key. One being if it's someone in power. A lot of educators this weekend came out and said, this is racist about what Donald Trump said about countries on the continent of Africa and Haiti and also El Salvador. That when it's someone in power, name it. When you're directly talking to someone and you're trying to explain to them why their viewpoint is wrong, in my experience, the best thing to do is say, well, that's kind of rooted in some underlying racist things, or that sounds like a comment that is rooted in racism, because then it makes it about the comment and not about the person, and they're more willing to receive it. Now, that doesn't mean that we need to tap dance around it. It doesn't mean we have to soften the blow for their personal benefit. But if you know the person and you really want to try and change their mind, you have to think of a way in which to do that. And flipping it and putting the onus on what they say rather than them as a human being will open the door to that. I will say I struggle with that because I really like to just call it what it is. But you can't always do that if you want to get somewhere. And so it's been on me to kind of grow that way personally so that I can make more of an impact. But it is a challenge. It's hard because you want to just say, stop being racist.
Oh, for sure. And I think that that's a lesson in and of itself. Like, you so badly want to call people out and you so badly want to call it what it is, but no one likes to be called a racist, and that shuts so many people off, even if they are doing it. So I like the idea of saying that that comment is rooted in racism, and then maybe that opens the door to having more of a conversation. But yeah, no, I have that issue too. I just want to call it what it is because I don't sugarcoat.
Yep. I don't have much space for it, but it's something that I'm personally working on because I know I have to do better to actually be an ally. I have to do better and work harder at getting people to change their mindset rather than just shutting them down.
For sure. Okay. So our next question was, what is the best way to start this conversation with young people?
So the best way to start this conversation is to have it every day in a class meeting. And I don't mean like have your kindergartners come on the carpet and be like, so let's talk about racism today. No, what I mean by that is have regular class meetings where students feel comfortable talking about difficult issues they're facing in their lives. Because before you can talk about these difficult things and have open and honest conversations, you have to build relationships first. And it's extremely important that students, especially students of color, feel comfortable and safe talking about these things. And regular class meetings is one really great way to do that. The other thing is just to teach history from a factual point of view without a perspective that marginalizes, because so much of our textbooks and what we learned is whitewashed. And I think that when we stick with the facts, we stick with history as told from the perspective of groups, if we do those things and we use primary sources, we use anything that we can get our hands on that makes history real for students, then we can have conversations about how those things in history then led to the present. This year when I was teaching Columbus Day, I work with a really great second grade teacher as one of my people I support with my ESOL students. And she let me actually teach the lesson to the whole class. And what we did is she had read a book on Columbus first, Christopher Columbus for Columbus Day. And then I followed up and I read the book Encounter by Janualyn. I don't know if anyone's ever seen it, but it's told from the perspective of a Taino boy. And it's from that perspective of Columbus coming in. And so it's an alternate.
Okay, wait. What was the name of the book?
Encounter.
I've not heard of it.
It's amazing. So the students had already like internalized the narrative of Christopher Columbus. And when I presented them with that alternative, now it's not a first person account. It's a fictionalized, from everything they've been able to piece together, account. And it was a really, really powerful lesson. And I didn't have to lead them to conclusions. They came to the conclusions on their own because I used the book as a vehicle to do it. And I also asked open-ended questions. They would ask me something and I would just reply with a question. For instance, they would ask me, well, why were they dressed like that? Referring to why they were not wearing much clothing. And I said, well, why do you think? And then another student would raise their hand and would reply. Engaging kids in that dialogue amongst each other rather than you having to lead the conversation is the best way to do it. By the end of that lesson, they themselves, without me saying anything, had come to the conclusion that Columbus was a horrible, horrible person. And they were completely outraged that there was Columbus Day. They were writing letters. I did not tell them to do this. I did not sugarcoat or spoon feed. They were such good little critical thinkers. By the end, they were like, who can we write a letter to stop Columbus Day? And I said, well, what do you want to put in its place? Because you got to put something in its place. And one little girl raised her hand and she said, well, what if we did one for the Native Americans instead? Because they were who were okay. The children get, and this is the thing, can do things. They can think about big things, but you have to provide them the opportunities. Now, I've built relationships with those kids. They know they can talk to me about anything. They know I will answer any question. They know it is a safe space to engage. And that's why I said you have to start with those conversations first and those relationships first in order to allow that dialogue.
Exactly. Well, okay, and here's a question. Marissa wants to know, is it truly dangerous to start the conversation with the egg activity? Can you go more in depth on why that's not a great way to approach it?
Oh, I talked so much about that egg activity this week, and
she's in the comments too. She wants you to talk about it next.
So I wrote a post called Leave the Eggs at Home on MLK Day. And I wrote this a year ago and I kind of stashed it away because I didn't want to deal with the pushback at that time. And I regret doing that because I wish I would have published it last year. However, the premise is this activity, you have a brown egg and a white egg. And the whole idea is you have kids make observations. How do they look like on the outside? What do they look like in the inside? Make a prediction, yada, yada, yada. If the kids have ever had both of these eggs and know they're the same on the inside, the whole thing is pointless. But the gist of it is the kids are supposed to realize it doesn't matter what you look like on the outside, you're the same on the inside, which that seems like a really good concrete way to teach this concept. The problem is, and I'm trying to like couch my words because this really gets my blood pressure up and my blood boiling. The problem is that we don't want to ever teach kids that it's despite the outside, that, you know, in spite of what your skin looks like, we're all the same on the inside, because for two reasons. One, everyone's melanin or lack thereof is beautiful. And two, we're not all the same on the inside. We are not all the same carbon copy person.
Right.
Not every single person has the same experiences, the same background, the same beliefs. And it leads to kids thinking, well, they're okay even if they look like that because they're the same on the inside. It shouldn't ever be they're okay because despite what they look like this. And that kind of goes along with this whole idea of colorblindness. Colorblindness is one of the single most harmful things you can teach kids to be, because it immunizes people of color. Don't ignore my skin color. Look at me in spite of it. We don't want kids to ever think that's what you should do.
Right.
Beautiful. And we want kids to know that. We want white kids to know that, not just black kids. We want white kids to know that, because we want them to then be able to recognize when someone is countering that, to stand up and say it's wrong. And the egg experiment, the Skittle experiment, people were telling me, oh, it's okay if I do it with M&Ms and Skittles. My answer is going to be no to all of it, because we don't ever need to make a concrete analogy to someone's skin color and say, in spite of the outside, we're all the same on the inside. We need to say, we're all different on the outside. We're all different on the inside. We're all beautiful regardless. That's not a difficult message. Kids get that. You can teach the history of segregation without relying on eggs or Skittles or M&Ms. Kids are smart. And I really think we insult their intelligence in our profession, really, by dumbing it down to that level. Sorry, that's my soapbox.
No, I think that's a really good point, because I remember like my teacher did the A activity, and I grew up in a very white school, and I remember being like, okay, so we're just eggs. Like I didn't go, maybe you shouldn't think that highly of me as a young child, but like the students get it. My students get it. When you have that conversation with them and you provide them with the open-ended questions in the material, they're not dumb. They get it. They are, and you want to get it to them before they become, consumed with the negativity of what the world has for them.
Right. And I'll say this too. If you're thinking of doing that, instead of the eggs, use a picture of water fountains side by side. Whites only, colored. Visual, right? You've got the two things set aside. Present the historical primary source information to students and ask them, what is wrong? Do you see something wrong with? How would you feel about this? Why do you think this was? Open-ended questions to create that dialogue, because then you're getting straight to the history. You're not beating around the bush, using color blindness to teach a message of peace and love. Because I'll tell you what, the civil rights movement wasn't peace and love. Cannons and sit-ins and people being arrested and people being lynched. And we don't have to tell kindergartners the graphic details of a lynching, but we can tell them the truth. We don't have to rely on eggs and M&Ms and Skittles or a craft. We don't have to rely on those things. We can tell them the history in an age-appropriate way. It is possible. And I know that it's challenging, because you're like, well, what if a kid says something wrong? What if a kid says something that's racist? I know people are afraid of that. I was afraid of that too when I was student teaching in a kindergarten classroom, and I was trying to do some of these lessons. When kids say things that is wrong, please don't ever shush them, because then they learn that racism is a hush-hush topic, or talking about race is hush-hush or bad, or they're going to get in trouble if they talk about this. This is particularly true for our white students. If they say something that is wrong out of ignorance, teach them. Don't silence them, teach them, because they need to know why what they said is harmful or hurtful, instead of just cutting the conversation because you're uncomfortable. So that's just my little piece on that. But please do something other than the egg thing.
Well, and like I read your post and I looked at my classroom, and the imagery is powerful, and using the historic images that have that content. We did the water fountains. We looked at that. And then Turquoise told me that I needed to do what a peaceful sit-in was. Like, what was peaceful? What are these peaceful things that they're doing? Because my kids didn't get that. So then I showed how there wasn't violence. And I didn't just do the civil rights movement. I also pulled up images of Ferguson, and there's actually an image that has them compared right next to each other. And that was really powerful for my students to see that it wasn't just civil rights. Like this is still happening today. Powerful thing to them that they were so deeply offended by were the peaceful sit-ins that took place in restaurants where you can see people dumping and spitting and throwing. And that's when it clicked for them, when they could see what was happening. I didn't have to say anything. Imagery is so powerful for these little ones, and they get it. And then the questions come, and that's where you go.
So I'll say this too, for all of my fellow white teachers that are kind of feeling like, oh, in this moment, or they're thinking, oh, I did this activity. Oh no, we're trying to prevent our kids from having those moments themselves. When we unpack our own whiteness and then we're able to teach history as it should be taught out in the open, talk about race, acknowledge racism, acknowledge bigotry, acknowledge all of these things, we are protecting our children from going through the same crisis of consciousness and conscience that we're having now ourselves. They don't have to have this discussion about unpacking whiteness in their 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, because they're going to have it when they're 5 and when they're 6. And they're going to understand that I'm white. I have an ability to speak out. Black is beautiful. Immigrants are welcome. They're going to know all these things, and they're not going to have to learn this painful lesson as an adult, because it is painful. When I realized all of the privilege that I had that I wasn't using to dismantle white supremacy, I mourned the loss of that time. And I know that that's where so much of this discomfort comes from, is wanting to do better and feeling like you could have been all along. That's why I'm saying teach the history as it should have been taught. Discard all these dumb crafts. I said it, they're dumb. I'm sorry. And I wasn't going to be petty. Discard as many as possible, because if you have time at the end, sure. But teach the history first. Don't let the kids learn through cutting out the same cookie cutter thing and making all of their MLKs look the same or all their Ruby Bridges look the same. Just teach the history and teach it right. And that means you got to learn it first. So if you don't know, just own up to it. I didn't know some of it. Own up to it, read some books, listen to some podcasts, do some TED Talks, and collaborate. Instagram has a bazillion teachers that are willing to talk about it. So if you have a question and you're like, I really want to teach this lesson and I want to do it right, somebody help me. I will do my best.
Yes.
People can message. I will gladly help.
Well, and that's just it. I feel like I'm not in a place to speak on this except from my own experiences, because I am still learning and I am still researching, because I know I'm at that point where I want to do better and I know that I should know better. And I have sat back and been like, oh, this is okay because it's what I learned this way. But there are so many things wrong with that. And if I want this to stop and this cycle to break, I have to be okay with being extremely uncomfortable and asking for help and saying, I don't know and I need help. And there's plenty of people out there to support you. And Sarah is one of mine that I found. John from the Dapper Teacher, I absolutely love him. He's been there. But I mean, there's so many amazing people just to connect with. And sometimes it just takes that step of being humble and being okay to put yourself out there and be that vulnerable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're going to make mistakes along the way. I make plenty of mistakes all the time. All of the time. I am always learning and growing. But that's the thing. We have to be responsible for ourselves. We have to be responsible and be the ones that want to make the change. It doesn't matter what you did last week, what you did a month ago, what you did 6 months ago, a year ago. It doesn't matter. If you want to do better today, then you do better today and you do better tomorrow. And you just have to let go of any sense of guilt you have over that, because that guilt's going to keep you from doing the right thing and growing. And that's a process. Letting go of that is a process. It's hard not to internalize it as your fault. No one's saying privilege is your fault. You have it by you didn't earn it. You didn't do anything to keep it. But the thing is, when you know you've got it, you have to work to dismantle it. And that's uncomfortable because it feels like a loss. It can feel like a loss. It can.
Oh, and I know that I personally, like, I felt guilty. Like, and there are still times that I know this is wrong and it just feels guilt. Yes, like just heavy, heavy guilt all the time about how I should have done better, I could do better. But like me beating myself up over that isn't helping me move forward at all. So I'm dealing with it and I'm trying to do better based on those things.
Yeah, it is. And it really is difficult. But the most important thing to do is to just start the conversation. Just start the conversation. Start the conversation with yourself and grow. And you can grow alongside your students. If you're trying to open up dialogue and start teaching history as it should be taught with primary sources and being factual and including the perspectives of marginalized groups that have been lost through the whitewashing of history, you can learn those things alongside your kids. You don't have to know it all in order to start. You don't. Doing one small thing differently or opening up dialogue or building one more relationship, that is a start. That is all you have to do is start. No one has to be perfect. No one has to get there in a day, a week, a month, or a year. It's going to be an ongoing thing.
That's so true. Okay, so let's talk about, while we're on this, you talked about the egg activity, and you also referenced like being honest and teaching history the way it is. But then we do run into history. It just has nasty, gruesome things that just aren't age appropriate for your little ones. So what do you do to make it age appropriate? Because clearly we're not going to go into the details of a lynching with like a 5-year-old. That's just not appropriate. What do you do?
Right. So the first thing I would say is that you just have to go in with the belief that our youngest learners are capable of doing and understanding big things. If you don't come in with that mindset, anything you do on this is not going to hit the mark. I will tell you immediately, if you're not already following Lanesha and Naomi, and we're going to link them. If you are not already following them, please do, because they're doing some really wonderful things for K-3 students and their teachers in showing how you can do this effectively. The first thing you need to think about is being intentional about language. When you were teaching the civil rights movement and you were teaching the history of our country, please use the word segregation. Students can, I teach English language learners. If my brand new to the country non-speakers can learn the word segregation, then students in kindergarten can learn and use it too. You just have to explicitly teach it. Use kid-friendly language when you do, but have them know that that's what segregation is. And that's where using those primary sources and those concrete examples comes in. Show them the visual that goes along with it. Explain the scenario that goes along with it. Which brings me to my second point. Skip the clip art. We don't need to use clip art for history because real pictures are available. And if real pictures aren't available, then you can use art. And granted, a lot of the art is going to be from the white or conqueror perspective. If you're teaching, for example, the first Thanksgiving, which is a whole nother thing we're not going to even talk about right
now. No.
But you can use things that aren't cutesy clip art with a smile. Because not to say that everyone was depressed and never smiled or anything like that, but if you're trying to explain segregation and you have a smiling Rosa Parks being arrested and all of it, it's just, please use pictures. There's just no reason. Library of Congress makes it easy. There's this amazing tool on Google called image search that just I just please use pictures. Please pictures.
She's begging you. And honestly, I can honestly speak from experience. I thought clip art, like, I like cute things, like clip art, cool, like it's adorable and I've purchased it and why not use it? But my kids get so much more from real images than they do from the pretty clip art, period.
Yeah. And, you can always find what you're looking for. And if you don't know, ask, because somebody has taught this lesson before, I promise you. And someone has taught it without clip art, because we didn't have clip art before the internet. And teachers were teaching real things before the internet. I know, because I saw the real pictures. And then the third thing I would say is to take your time. These lessons, to do them right, are going to take time because you have to explicitly teach the vocabulary. Students are going to have questions. You want to allow them to have the dialogue. It's not going to be a quick 30-minute lesson and then you're done. And that's why you got to teach it all year. You have to weave it in so that students aren't shocked the first time they hear that segregation was a thing. We don't want our third graders to be like, people were kept separate, because they never learned that word or they never learned that circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And be patient with them and be patient with yourself. And the final thing I'll say is enlist the support of children's literature. When in doubt, there is a book that will help you teach it. And like I said, I used a book when I taught the alternative, totally correct, of Columbus. And I didn't have to do any leading. I didn't have to dangle a carrot to get my kids to come to that conclusion. The book allowed them the space to explore that topic through the illustrations and the text and unpacking it. And this is how you can get social studies in, because you can use those as mentor texts for reading. You can talk about main idea and all of these things. So really use explicit language, skip the clip art, skip it, take your time, and enlist children's literature to help you out. And Vera has done an amazing job with her diverse reads for the classroom group and sharing books. And I really recommend, if you're not already, follow her. There's a couple other websites that are really, really great, like We Need Diverse Books and Read Brightly. And I also have, I included a few of my favorites on the list too. And I'm going to try and do some more book talks in my stories as well, because I think we can never have too many people talking about really good literature to help us teach these things, because there's nothing that I really firmly believe, there's nothing a book can't help do for a child. And that's especially true for these tough topics.
For sure. For sure. Is there a question we haven't gotten to that you want to get to? Because we have some on here, like, how do you approach white students not wanting to be racist or treading lightly around their peers of color once they learn about racism? Because I agree, like, and you already kind of touched on this with, like, if someone or one of your students says something that is racist, don't shush them, because immediately they learn that that's not good.
Right.
And you teach them instead.
Right.
But
you also, I will say this, if little light reading homework for everyone, if you don't already know your district or your school's policy on not equal opportunity, but if you don't already know their policy on hate speech and all of these types of things, please go find out tonight, because you need to know that, one, to advocate for your students and your families, but you also need to know that for yourself, so that you know what your obligation is as a professional educator and what your protections are within your district. If you have a coworker that is that holds racist beliefs and that you are concerned about maybe pushing those beliefs on their students, you need to know what your protections are so that you can advocate for your students, because that's your responsibility as a professional educator. You can usually find those. They're usually in your school board's bylaws, and a lot of school boards you can just search by like keyword, and you can do that. My district has a really wonderful policy about non-discrimination, and we were one of the first school systems to include transgender students. So yeah, please just apprise yourself of that knowledge so that you can advocate for your students and you know the policy, so that after you've had the opportunity to teach them and they continue saying things that are racist or that are defamatory or that really kind of threaten your other students' well-being, that the policy you can follow through on and advocate.
Perfect. Okay, one of my links was broken. We're good. Diverse reads covered. We're good. I honestly never would have thought about checking my district.
Yeah. And it's a good opportunity to lead then, because if you don't have a policy on that, go to your next school board meeting and ask, where is the policy? Because I think if a school system has not established those policies on what their position is of not discriminating on the basis of race, national origin, things like that, they need one. Everybody needs a policy that says black and white in writing, we do not tolerate hate speech. We do not tolerate XYZ. We welcome everyone. If a district doesn't have that policy in 2018, they need one. And you can be the change in your district and just say, hey, here's some language from other places. What do you think about us getting language like this? And if anyone would like, I'd be happy to show you mine. It's on the internet for anyone to see, and I'll link it if everyone wants to see what my school district's language looks like. Um, just because I think it's really important that we have these things in place to protect our students and our teachers, our co-workers, because we have teachers of color out here teaching in schools where they're being marginalized. They are among racist co-workers. They feel silenced. They feel like they've got no one to turn to, and they need to be protected and they need to be advocated for. And that's our responsibility. I can't tell you how many times I've had teachers of color from the South in particular message me and say, I wish I had more people like you teaching at my school. And they shouldn't have to wish for that. They shouldn't have to wish to work in a non-hostile environment.
That's so true. That is so true. So true. I guess, okay, so we've kind of gone through all of our notes at this point. So, and I don't know if you can see the comments, but if you can get to the comments, like they are fantastic. So, let's see. I guess if you guys have any questions left, I'm going to scroll as far as back as I can to see if there's anything. What I also love is that someone asked to connect with other people on Instagram that are here, because I think that's a really good thing. Like, you're all here, you're all learning together. So I guess you can bounce ideas off each other and find each other on Instagram, which is another great tool. I didn't even think about that. I know. I didn't even think about that. And I love Instagram. So I think that's a really good idea.
I'm going to look at if there's a hashtag already. And if I will hashtag it, and then we can continue to connect and check in on each other and keep each other accountable, because that's the other thing I would say. You need to have people that are going to keep you accountable. And please don't only rely on teachers of color and people of color to do that. You need fellow white people to call you on your stuff.
Yes. Yes. And I think that sometimes I know, okay, so I can't blanket statement for everybody, but what I can say is someone who is aware of these things, it is really uncomfortable and really hard for me to call on my peers and be like, the ones that I don't know very well, people that are close to me, I've got no problem calling you on your stuff. And you know that. But if I don't have that relationship with you, it's really, really hard for me to step out and be like, look, and that shouldn't be the case. And I'm getting there and I'm learning and I'm taking that progress. Like, I'm taking that step by step, but I will get there someday, and I will get there in a productive way and make sure that it's positive. But right now it is very, very hard. But I think that that's an awesome idea to connect.
Looks like the Unpacking Whiteness hashtag has been used barely at all. So have at it, friends.
Woo! Unpacking Whiteness. That's exciting. I didn't even realize it hasn't been used at all. Seriously?
Hashtag so that I can kind of keep up with everybody and check in. And feel free to always tag me if you want me to come chime in on something. DM me. I'm usually around. I've been known to take an Instagram hiatus here and there, but I should be back for good.
Oh yeah, there's 23 posts on there. And yeah. I see Taylor Swift on there.
Oh, really? Lindsay, Taylor Swift is on Unpacking Whiteness hashtag for some
reason. There you go. Okay, so how are we going to use this hashtag? Say it again.
I think it'd be a really good way for people to continue engaging in dialogue if they want to follow it. Instagram now allows you to follow hashtags both in stories and in your feed. And so it'd be a way for us to make sure that we're continuing to talk about these things, and we can just add them to our post if it's about social justice or white privilege and things like that. And then that way we can continue this kind of like PLC, if you would, of unpacking our whiteness and making sure we're using our white privilege to dismantle white supremacy.
Awesome. I'm still going through comments. These are so good. Yes, using black and white photos, I will tell you from personal experience, having those for my students, the dialogue was amazing.
Yes. Oh, but if you are teaching tomorrow, which I hope you are, but if you're teaching tomorrow and you need some really good images, Sean King, both on Facebook and on Instagram, he curated a collection of 50 plus images of Dr. King that are in color. Because I think that one of the things that kind of throw kids for a loop when they're learning about Martin Luther King Jr. or they're learning about the civil rights movement is that they perceive it to be so long ago because it's in black and white. And so I think that if you can use some of those pictures in color as well, it'll kind of help them let go of that idea a little bit, because I think that idea is kind of harmful. The civil rights movement has continued. It did not ever end. We are still in a civil rights movement right now. And so I think that would be really helpful to students to see some of those images also in color, since they are available.
And that's really true. The other question that came up in my class was, "Well, this was a really long time ago," and I was like, "No, not really. This was X." Well, so we did the math, which was a great, addition. Like, here's the year, here's where we are. Let's put these numbers together and figure it out. Of course, with help, because I'm teaching second graders, they can't do all of that math themselves yet. I wish they could. And then they're like, "Well, my grandparents are that old." Okay, well then they lived through this and they experienced this. Well, they're not that old. Oh, exactly. Like, or they think they're really old. But I think that conversation of the images today, I went and followed him on Instagram, Sean King, and it was amazing, just amazing. The hashtag is #Unpacking Whiteness. Sarah, you're all over that. Look at you.
Contribution to the comment section, because I'm not having to talk right now.
I'm trying to fill space so you have time to read the comments, because there's a lot of great things on there.
Yeah. And I'll say this too. When I am able to post the list of a lot of the educators I follow. Oh, actually, can other people go to my profile and see who I'm following? Do you know, Meg? Can they do that?
Yes, I will actually.
Because
let me get on that.
If you can you tell me if you can see who I'm following? Because
oh yeah,
you can.
Mm-hmm. On a public profile, you can see Instagram nerd here. On a public profile, you can see who's following who, unless it's locked into private.
Oh no, mine's
that's
like
it. Yeah. So basically, on that link, if you open it in a new tab, so you can keep us open as well, you can go ahead and click on who she's following, right there, and there's just a list. Like, I can see it from here. It's a long list.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people on there that I am following. However, I will make a curated list. But if you want to just kind of get started and just scroll down, I really, really, really just urge everyone to make sure that their list is not an echo chamber. And so if you are a white teacher like me, please make sure you're following teachers of color. They bring so much to the conversation. They are the experts on teaching about their experience. They are the voices we need to be listening to. They are not, however, are teachers of how to not be privileged and white, right? Like, we need to make sure we're not relying on them to do all this emotional labor for us, which is why I'm saying we have to be responsible for ourselves and unpack our whiteness. I could not have made it through to where I am right now if I didn't have people like Tamara and Naomi and Lanesha and Britt from Listening and Learning One and Antonia and all of these amazing, amazing people to dialogue with me and hold space with me and just be a really good friend and colleague. So I really urge people to make sure that their list is not just reflective of flare pens and what is appealing, because it has changed a lot. It's no longer just about the visual imagery. We have the dialogue and we have comments and threaded comments now. We can hold these conversations a lot easier than we used to be able to. So, strike a balance. I like my flare pens. Anybody will tell you I have a nice big collection.
Exactly. And I think that's really important. Like, it doesn't have to be, like, doing this does not make you, pigeonhole you into this. You can still, like, I think Lindsay did a great job the other day.
Tell you, Lindsay, shout out to Lindsay, because when I saw that, first of all, I cackled. My got higher and tighter. And third, I was just like, let's flip the script, because when I tell you that within 30 minutes of posting my cute pens aren't going to dismantle white supremacy post, when I tell you within 30 minutes I'd lost 100 followers, I'm not playing. People really love their cute pens, and there's nothing wrong with it. And the funniest thing is, those were my pens. It wasn't a stock photo. I took a picture of my pens.
That was a very good photo, though.
I am the girl that will spend $1 bazillion on Lisa Frank and cute planner nonsense and planner this and planner that. It just so happens that I pencil in reminders for myself to go read Sean King today or go do whatever today. And I meld the two. That's the thing. You have to bring it as a part of your life. Working towards unpacking your whiteness is a part of your life. Liking cute things is a part of your life. Being a good teacher is a part of your life. You just have to integrate all of it. You can't just put the blinders on.
Right. Right. And for those of you that missed it, if you want to see the way that Lindsay has flipped the script, I will get you her Instagram. Give me 2 seconds. Because
and so, Tamara started hashtagging it cute and conscious. So that's another one. I'm going to tag things from now on as cute and conscious when it looks good, but it's talking about things that matter. And somebody did that earlier today and tagged me in it. And it was this beautiful setup of flare pens, but it had like a social justice message above it. And I love that. I love it. Cute. My next move is my Ray Dunn collection. I'm going to stage it and like highlight some of the letters to spell out something related to social justice. So.
Ooh, I want to see that one.
I did one not too long ago that was my Ray Dunn mug that says think, and it said think about your impact.
I saw that one, yes.
But I'm going to get some other ones in there because we can do cute and conscious.
Oh, totally. So now you've got 2 hashtags. You've got hashtag unpacking whiteness and hashtag cute and conscious.
Coined by Tamara Russell.
Yes. Trademark.
Mark that, Tamara. On that.
Oh, it was great. And that's just it. So I think this has been a great conversation and people are loving it. I think it's a great place to start. I think it's a great place that.
And rebrand, Sarah. No, I'm good. I'll just go by my name because then nobody will ever forget me.
No one can ever forget you. No, don't rebrand.
I swear. I'm sure most people's first thought is, what did she say this time? It's okay. I know that's the reaction. It's okay. I embrace it. That's my word for 2018, by the way, is embrace.
Oh, I like it.
So I am embracing people's perception of me and I'm using it to my advantage. No, I think cute and conscious is a thing that we can all be on Instagram because our kids need that too. They need the balance of the fun and they need the serious. They need to know about the world. But that's one thing I'll mention. Can I plug Advocacy real quick?
Yes, go. Yes.
So Tamara and I have been working on a project called Equity, and it's a podcast, but we also have a website where we're doing some blog posts to accompany each episode that has links in it. Episode 5, I think it is 6, whatever. There's an episode going live later tonight, and it's about MLK. And it is really more about educating yourself than necessarily teaching your students. But Tamara and I are a total mess when we're together. If you've ever seen us on our Insta stories, we're a total disaster in the best way possible. But that's kind of what our podcast is too. So if you can imagine the two of us just shooting the breeze, but talking about social justice and a little bit of humor thrown in, that's really what it is. The episodes are about 30, 40 minutes. So you can split one in the morning, in the afternoon on your commute, or if you have a long commute like I do, you can listen to the whole thing. And we try and provide some things, some takeaways that you can put into action in your classroom right away. We've talked about things like alternative ways to teaching Thanksgiving, the difference between compliance and what else was it? I can't remember. Tamara's going to say it in the comments. And we also are on Instagram, and Tamara posts really funny memes. That's all her. She makes
I love her memes. I love her memes.
She makes a meme, and then sometimes she'll call me and she'll be like, Sarah, caption it. I'll just say something off the fly. It's bad. But anyway, I'm telling you, we are a mess. We truly are. This is why we can never live in the same area ever. But anyway, please give it a try. Equity. We're going to talk a lot more about all of these topics. We have a Trump episode coming up, so Sarah's going to need that one. And we've got some other things coming down the pike, so some other projects. But yes, Equity Podcast on iTunes and all those other good places.
Ooh. There's a conversation going on about Nashville this summer.
Oh, really?
Yes.
There is.
Are you going
I,
to be in Nashville?
I'm going to be in Nashville, and so is Tamara. So I need somebody to make sure they've got bail money.
I will not have it. Do not count on me.
Maybe pull together somebody, or maybe wait, maybe I need to make a cute T-shirt and then I'll have bail money. I'll make a petty bun T-shirt and then I'll have bail money. But yeah, so we'll be in Nashville. So any of our fellow TPT people, we will be in Nashville, Tamara and I together, causing a ruckus.
Yes. I'm excited.
Tamara with her
with their money bags. I'm gonna be in Nashville too. I'm super excited to meet everybody. I think this has been a great conversation, and I think it's a great stopping point for people to like absorb and go look at all the links that we have.
I will tell you, you get exhausted when you talk because it's such a mentally and emotionally intensive thing. So that's the other thing. Plug Sarah Forrest, self-care matters. So definitely as you're on this journey, make sure that self-care is a really, really important thing. Oh, and Christina, we need to plug Christina.
Oh, yes, we do.
So Christina from Teach Like a Girl is another really good person to follow if you want to continue on this journey of unpacking your whiteness and social justice. She does a really good job talking about things, and she's like a really good example of the cute and the conscious because she's funny as all get out, but she's also very serious and has some really insightful things to say. So she's another really good person to follow if you aren't already. I can't imagine you're not following her already, but just in case.
Oh yeah, no, you need. I love her. But I'm biased. But yeah. What can I say? No, she does great things. There are a lot of amazing people that do a lot of amazing things, in all honesty. So I'm super excited that we had this conversation. And Sarah, thank you so, so much. I could not have done this justice, and you did an amazing job providing information. I learned a lot. I know a lot of people in the comments learned a lot, and we have a lot to absorb. And we also have a great accountability system. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me.
Having me. This is the first time I've gone live in, well, ever. And I was a little bit of a nervous wreck, but I told you guys I'd get it together about 30 minutes in once I got over myself. So.
Oh, I knew you'd get it. It's fine. I was not worried.
Used to those 1 minute snippets where I can go off and roll my eyes and put a filter on it and then move on. So yeah, but thank you so much for having me and letting me have this platform to talk about this, because I really think it's such an important thing for us to keep talking about.
I completely agree, and I hope to do more. I will think of more, I promise. But yeah, this has been great, and people are so excited. And John says he's got $5 on it, so we're good. You know, people, we can pool together for bail money if necessary. But for those of you that have watched this long and stuck with us in the comments, thank you so much for being here. If you're watching the replay, I hope you check out the links down below. Everything we talked about is linked down there, or you have my social media and you have Sarah's social media. So if at any point you need a question answered, or you forgot a link or need something, please just let us know and we'll get it to you as soon as we possibly can. And if Sarah gets those links or Google Docs or lists made of like books and things, I will also be dropping those down. It'll be growing resources for sure. Super excited, super excited. So we're going to go ahead and end this. I love you all dearly. Thank you so much for being here. It was a great Megabyte Monday. And I'll see you guys later. Bye. Button. Bye.